Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads. My special guest today, you might know him from being in Ring of Honor. You might know him as Cortez Castro from Lucha Underground. I'd like to welcome the Havana Pitbull, Mr. Ricky Reyes. Ricky, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time, man. Now, the token question that we usually start out with is, what are your first memories of professional wrestling?
Well, my first memories were of watching Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik for the WWF Championship. I remember that was like the actual first match I ever can remember watching with my dad and my brother. And I remember when it happened, like jumping up and down, me and my brother, like all happy because, you know, Hogan won. And I remember I turned to my dad and I said, I want to be a wrestler when I grow up. And he was, of course, like, yeah, sure, shut up and sit down, you know. So that's I remember that, and after that, I just remembered as a kid just always like obsessed with it, completely obsessed with it, like just trying to watch it as much as I can. Used to go to like you know, convenience stores or whatever, grocery stores with my mom, and like run to the magazine stands and read all the magazines and, you know, all that type of stuff. So I was just obsessed with it since I was like 5 or 6 years old. So.
Now, was there anyone in particular you were a fan of?
Well, I mean, when you're that small, you know, just kind of like, you know, Hulk Hogan at the time, because he was so, you know, popular and like seen it all over the world. So at first it was Hogan, and then I got more into like by the time I got into junior high into high school, I realized I wasn't going to be a huge person. I was pretty short, so I started really paying attention to the smaller guys. Obviously, I'm a little more drawn to them, just the more athletic style wrestling, like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and, you know, like guys that did a lot of, like, you know, movement and stuff in the ring. So I was drawn more to that, like the Bulldogs and things like that. So and it just kind of evolved in time, you know. And then I eventually got into wrestling and stuff and started was more intrigued and inspired by more of the actual wrestlers, you know, Bob Backlund, you know, wrestlers that had that amateur background, like Mike Rotundo and stuff like that. So I started kind of gearing towards like Gordy and Hansen and them. So I started like tape trading for stuff from like All Japan and New Japan and stuff like that, and just kind of watching different styles of wrestling from all over the world.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way, where I was probably like 6 or 7. We had WrestleMania 5 in Atlantic City is like the one like vivid memory I have. We were going to go, but my dad couldn't get tickets. And then the thing that really like hooked me was when, and I still laugh when I think about it, was when Earthquake attacked like Hulk Hogan on the Brother Love show, and they stretchered him off, and then they had the, you got to send like get well cards to Hogan. And I still to this day, I sent one. I was probably like 6 or 7 at the time. And they sent you like this generic like card back with like a stamped Hogan like autograph on it, like thanking you, and you're the reason I'm coming back to the ring and all this.
Awesome.
So I still have that. And then we went to like the SummerSlam in Philly, where Warrior and Rude were in a cage.
Yeah.
So it kind of like took off from there. And you mentioned tape trading. I said the younger kids won't understand the struggle of tape trading.
Yeah, that's true.
From many years ago. That was a fun time. Now, when did you decide you were going to do this?
Oh, I literally made the decision up when I was like 6, when I told my dad. Like, it never like left my mind ever. Like, I mean, I played basketball and stuff like in elementary and junior high school and stuff like that. But I was always like there was never a time in my life I could remember that I just didn't love wrestling, and I just didn't want to do it. Like, so it was always in my head, even though like I was playing basketball pretty regularly and stuff like that. Like growing up in Southern California, it's always nice outside, so we'd go to the parks pretty much every day, play basketball and stuff. But I'd be there, and I'd have a small group of friends that watched wrestling as well, and we would wait for the games, and we'd sit around talking about what we saw on like primetime wrestling or Superstars or whatever Wrestlemania was coming up, and so I mean it was always in my head that that's what I wanted to do, and, so it just never just like, oh, I'm gonna give this a try one day. I was just always obsessed with it.
Absolutely. Now tell me about your training experience. Now, who did you train with?
Well, I mean, going into wrestling, like my sophomore year of high school, I quit the basketball team, and I went out for the wrestling team because I started getting harassed by like counselors and other teachers and stuff, like, oh, what are you going to do when high school's over? You have like, another 2 years after this and then you're finished. And I was just trying to explain to everybody, like, I'm going to be a professional wrestler, but that doesn't get over too well.
Yeah, so, especially with the guidance counselors.
Yeah, so they didn't like that. So I ended up quitting the basketball team, and I went out for the wrestling team, and I went through the training and stuff, summer workouts and stuff, which were terrible. And and I went out for the team, but my grades weren't good enough, so I couldn't wrestle varsity. So I just stayed at the JV level, and I practiced every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 8 p.m. And it was just like a nonstop grind during the season. And then in the off season, I still stayed in the wrestling shed, and we just lifted weights and worked out and stuff like that. So I just knew that's what I was going to do. So I rearranged my schedule to where I had 2 PE classes, which were my 6th period, which was wrestling. And then I took weightlifting for I think it was my 3rd period class. So I was always kind of just working out and wrestling and stuff like that. And it's just what I always wanted to do. So when I graduated high school, I still didn't know where I was going to go, but I do remember calling All Pro Wrestling in Hayward, California, when it was at the time was Roland Alexander, who passed away a while back. Like he was running that school, and I just saw an advertisement for it in a wrestling magazine. So I called it, and I remember him telling me, well, you need a car, drive up here, and you can live here. And like he had like these dorms, like these small like little studio apartment things. He goes, you can live here. You would just pay like a monthly fee, and you would be able to train here and stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, this is the answer to everything. And then at the same time, I saw an advertisement for Ultimate Warrior University. It was like in Arizona somewhere. And I called that. Of course, they wanted like thousands of dollars up front, and I couldn't afford that. So I would just kind of kept looking through magazines, because every now and again I would see an advertisements for schools. And then luckily I found Empire Wrestling Federation. Like I was reading some of the results of like the indie scene, and I noticed it was like in West Covina or something. I was like, and I live like 30 minutes from there. So I grew up in the Inland Empire in Fontana, California. And so I called the number, and they said, call the School of Hard Knocks. So I called and they gave me the school number, and that was in San Bernardino, which was like 15 minutes away from where I lived. So I ended up going there first, and Jesse Hernandez was the promoter and the booker there, and he had a partner, Bill Anderson. So they kind of started me off like, I was training. I would pay to go to the school, and they were the ones showing us how to bump and run the ropes and stuff like that. But quickly, like Frankie Kazarian and Rocky Romero, he was already there. Like Christopher Daniels was there. So like there was a lot of people in there to help each other. We all kind of grew together really. And from there, we just kind of branched off. Like, went to UPW, which was Ultimate Pro Wrestling, where John Cena was, and Samoa Joe, Chris Daniels, all those guys. Like, they were all there. So I started going to do their wrestling training. Was like Saturday afternoon in Huntington Beach. So Rocky and I would just like pack up our car. Like, we'd go to San Bernardino in the morning from 9 to 1, train, drive down to Huntington Beach, be there by like 3 or 4, train for a couple hours, do like their practice show at night, and then eventually we started getting booked on their big shows. Then after that, that was probably like 2001. After that, Justin McCauley, who is Mr. Inoki's MMA coach for all his fighters, for Mr. Inoki's fighters, he approached me and said, "Hey, I want to open this New Japan dojo in LA. Would you be interested?" It's like kind of invite only right now, and I just wanted to know if you'd be interested in training there. And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." That was, another dream of mine to wrestle in Japan. So I was like, of course. So I basically just moved to Santa Monica, moved into the dojo, and trained there. And that was directly under Mr. Inoki himself. He was living in Santa Monica at the time, and he would come into the dojo like once or twice a week, roll around with us, and just kind of like explain his theory and idea of what he wanted pro wrestling to be like in New Japan, because he was still majority owner of New Japan at the time. So there was a bit of a power struggle at the time. When 2002, it was kind of like half Chono was in charge, and then he butted heads with Inoki because they didn't quite get along. So
right.
So there was a lot of that going on. But I mean, I technically I was trained in the New Japan dojo by Mr. Inoki himself, and a couple other, like Lyoto Machida, who was a UFC champion, Frank Trigg, Rico Chiapparelli is an Olympian, world champion Greco-Roman wrestler, Vladimir Matyushenko, UFC fighter, Babaji Ismail is the only Brazilian jiu-jitsu player to ever tap out a Gracie in Brazil. So these were all our coaches, like every day. Like, we really trained mixed martial arts and different disciplines in fighting more so than we did pro wrestling, because Mr. Inoki wanted the wrestlers that come out of the New Japan dojo to be, in LA at least, to be more like a work shoot fighters, like how UWFI was.
Yeah.
So we really didn't train pro wrestling like Bryan Danielson and Rocky and Samoa Joe and I, like TJ Perkins. We'd go into the ring at night when everything was basically closed down, when the whole operations were shut down for the day, and that's what we would just bump around then. But we had already did anywhere from literally from 6 to 10 hours worth of either strength training, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, whatever the boxing, kickboxing, whatever the discipline was for the day. So it was
that's
very,
crazy.
very grueling. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how do you think that shaped you into the performer that you are now?
Well, it helped me because it gave me discipline, and I was mentally tough, because when you were pushed, living in a dojo, you're pushed to the limit like every day, and like you really can't give up. So when you think your body's going to break down and it's going to shut down and turn off and not move anymore, like your brain tells it to keep going, so in that sense, like I was mentally tough and physically tough, obviously, because I could get through it every day, and that's how hard we were pushed, because like we'd have world-class fighters coming in on a daily basis, preparing for fights, using our gym and using us as like tackle dummies type of thing. So we were just like, basically sparring partners for world champion wrestlers and judo players and stuff like that. So in that sense, it was a positive, but it was also a negative, where Mr. Inoki wanted us not to pander to the crowd and not be like character driven. We were strictly to be basically MMA fighters in the pro wrestling world, which obviously is not how you get over with wrestling fans. But in eating, breathing, crapping that every day, like you don't know no different, because Monday through Friday, that's what we were doing. And then we'd travel on the weekends to go wrestle, and we would just destroy people, you know, with like zero emotion, almost like robots. So, you know, it was very hard to, you know, because we didn't watch anything except Mr. Inoki stuff. We didn't watch anything except classic New Japan, which was very, very traditional Japanese style wrestling, like you know. So it was difficult to find a character and kind of bring out that character type attitude. So right around that time, we kind of just started in Ring of Honor, I think 2004. So we were just kind of getting away from the 2 or 3 years of being like Inoki's kind of like wrestling henchman type thing. So, so we were working on, our most difficult thing was working on connecting with the audience, you know, and trying to bring that into the match and still try to find like a happy medium of what we brought to the table and why we were hired in the first place, and still try to work with the work like a character type of thing. So it was amazing in the sense, like I trained in a multi-million-dollar facility with trainers from all over the world, different disciplines, but you know, it kind of like they were trying to program you as a fighter, and that was wrong. It wasn't. I didn't want to be a fighter. Like, that was never my intention. I just wanted to wrestle New Japan, you know. So, so it was great, you know. But I mean, at the same time, it also, I felt like it was kind of backed me into a corner, you know, because I was trying to be a good soldier and do what I was told and everything else. But, you know, like I wasn't living in Japan to be able to be successful in that avenue, in that aspect. So right. I was still in America. So it took a while for me to get used to, or even create a character that I felt comfortable interacting with fans. So that was a struggle for me for years. Like, I felt like technically I was great. I was probably one of the best technical wrestlers in the world at one time, and that was awesome. But I just I couldn't get out of that shell of not showing emotion, you know. And
right,
that's
I understand.
How you get the crowd. That's how you get the crowd fired up, and they can relate to emotion. But so it was a struggle for me for years, and yeah, it was like I couldn't understand like why I quote unquote wasn't getting over. Like, you know, I couldn't understand why wasn't I getting these huge reactions when I was in there, and I was leaving the show thinking like, well, I'm the best wrestler here. Why didn't they give me that reaction? You know, like, right. Don't they know who I am? You know, so I kind of had that like stuck in my head. So it took a while before, you know, friends were like, yo, you got to show emotion. You got to work with the crowd. And in my head, I was like, that's the last thing I want to do. You know, like, that's just stupid. You know.
Yeah.
But, so it took a while, but I mean, I eventually got it. So.
Now, you had mentioned you wrestled in Japan in 2002, I believe it was. What was that like for you to? Because obviously you said that was one of your like big goals to do that, but to have to do that like so early on in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for New Japan for 2 years, 2002 to about 2004. But I mean, it was amazing. Like, you know, I started wrestling in like 1999. So 3 years in, I was in my debut match for New Japan was in the Tokyo Dome. It was October 14th, 2002, which was the Spiral Dome. It was like a Fujita and Nagata were the main match.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for the IWGP title, and we went over there with like Boss Rutan, like he was on the card, and yeah, it was amazing. Like, it was, I mean, in 2001, I went to Japan twice on a USO tour for, part of like a wrestling group that was going over on a military base tour. And I remember we had a couple of days off in Tokyo, so I went to the Dome, and I went with some friends, guys that were on the shows. And I remember telling them, I said, before I die, one day I'll wrestle in this building, and of course everyone, laughs. But the next year I did it, So that's why when I tell people, like, there's no real time frame on success. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know when something's going to happen, and if you just worry about just getting better, that's all you have to do. Before you know it, you'll be the best, and then more opportunities will come through that. But if you're not good enough to be at that level yet, don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? Just worry about getting better. So that was always my mentality. Like, I never really like thought, oh, I want to be world champion here, or anything like that. I just wake up every day and think, all right, I got to get better than I was yesterday, and so forth. What can I do today to make myself better than I did yesterday? So I'll work out, eat right, train, study this, study that. If I studied this yesterday, I want to study this today, and then put into my match mentally, like, what I want to do and how I want to do it and the kind of reaction I plan to gain from that. So, like, all these things go through my head, like, every day. So, it was just, when I finally got there, it was, we were down, and I remember we were getting dressed in the locker room, and Simon Inoki came up to us. He's the one that booked us out there, and he said, it's officially completely sold out, 65,000 people to capacity, no more seats. And he just kind of like nodded at us, and we just kind of looked at each other, and it was me, Brian Danielson, and Rocky. We were teaming together against Liger, Tiger Mask, and Kakihara. And he was like one of the old UWF shoot fighter guys. So I was like, oh, okay. And then they get a little van, New Japan van, and drives you around the other side of the dome, and you go into the entrance. And we were opening the pay-per-view.
Oh, wow.
There was so much pressure, yeah. And like TJP was with us, and he was like our corner guy because he trained with us, but he was only 17 at the time. And I remember we're at the curtain, and the guy in front of the curtain says, please, no look upstairs. Don't look upstairs. And we were like, why? And they say, because like a feeling like an ocean and like seasick. And we're like, oh, okay. So the first thing, of course, my dumbass did was like I popped out onto the stage, and I'm like, yeah. And I looked up, and like you get like this, like there's a wave of heads, and it gives you like this, like a seasick type of, like, you feel like you're going to throw up.
Right.
Like, because we were so scared. And then like the ramp is just this long black ramp. And it's just like, it was so dark, and you didn't know if you were going to fall off it or you're scared. And, it's like, and all I kept thinking was just get to the ring and I'll be okay. Just get to the ring and I'll be okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that would probably be really overwhelming.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think I was like, 20, 22, 21, something like that. Never, I had been on the road, like I traveled before, but it was a 1 month thing. Like this was a whole nother animal. So, it was pretty insane. I mean, it was, a feeling I'll never forget. What's funny about it is I think like it gave me so much confidence too, because you overcome such a huge obstacle. Like not too many people on this planet can say, yeah, I wrestled in the Tokyo Dome, sold out.
Yeah, kind of like a sink or swim thing.
Yeah. So well, the funny thing was the next week, Scott Norton joined us on tour because we were touring the last 2 weeks before we went home, and then he showed up. So we met him down in the lobby on the first day going to get the bus, and he congratulated, like he'd never even met us, and he had just read about us in some articles and stuff, and he congratulated us. We came down together, and he was like, he goes, it's like saying you wrestled at WrestleMania. He's like, no one will ever be able to take that away from you. He goes, it's a badge of honor. And he goes, you guys should take that as a huge compliment that this company invested that in you. And we all just kind of like, I think it all kind of hit us all at once, like a ton of bricks. Like, wow, like, yeah, like we're only a few years in, you know what I mean? And we just wrestled in front of 65,000 people, like a week ago, and it was just, I couldn't believe it. To this day, it's still like I can still feel that queasy feeling, like being scared, like,
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, so if I really think about it, I can kind of re-feel that moment. But I remember in 2004, I think, I ended up doing a dark match for WWE at the Staples Center. I had to wrestle Carlito before Raw, and I remember a buddy of mine was back with me, this guy Aaron, and he's like, "Yo, bro, are you nervous, dog?" And I'm like, "No." And I was like sitting there, and he's like, "Staples Center, bro, it's Raw, And I was like, "Dude, I wrestled in the Tokyo Dome," and I remember specifically telling him, like, "This is nothing. This is what, 18,000 people? Like, this isn't a big deal to me." I literally went out and wrestled in WWE, like my first ever dark match against Carlito, and like I was not the least bit nervous, like at all. I remember specifically like not being jittery, I was pumped up and excited, but I wasn't nervous.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I got that nervousness out of me in that one moment.
Yeah, that I could see that. Now, you had mentioned you've been with Rocky in a 6-man over there, and then you and him had kind of trained in different places together. Is that how you guys got like put together as a team? Like, because you were always like basically training together?
Well, Jesse Hernandez, he's the one that originally put us together. Rocky started, I want to say maybe 6 months before I did, and he had a mask gimmick, and he lost his hood like in a first mask match. And when he lost his mask, I had got to a point where they were like, "Hey, start thinking of a gimmick so we can debut you." And they couldn't really think of anything. Like, I didn't have any ideas. I was just like, "Oh, I want to be a wrestler," and they were just like, "Oh, well, you got to have some sort of character." So we were pitching around ideas for weeks, and then I remember Rocky came into training and said, "Well, what do I do now? Like, I don't have the mask, and I don't want to be off the shows." So I was sitting down, like just resting or getting water or something, and Bill Anderson came up to me and said, "Well, you don't have an idea, right?" And I said, "No." So, and then Jesse was like, "Brother, let's put you guys together as a team, just for, a few shows, because we need the Wrecking Crew, or like their big babyface tag team. They're like, we need a heel team for the crew, the Wrecking Crew. You guys could be the heels, And so Rocky and I are both Puerto Rican, so we thought, oh, could we be like a Puerto Rican tag team or something? And then Jesse was like, "No, brother." He's like, "Los Boricuas are on TV right now. Savio's my friend. He's gonna think I'm biting his gimmick, And he goes, "Be Cubans. Nobody likes Cubans. Nobody likes you guys. So we were like, "All right." And they said, "That just for a few shows, and then we'll figure out something for you guys." And of course, that was in 1999. So I'm still Cuban today.
That's
how that started. We were originally called Los Cubanitos, which is Little Cuban Boys. And then when we were trying out for 01 and we went to UPW, Rick Bassman was like, "Well, can we call you something else? And, I want to make you guys a little different and So we were thinking of some ideas, and Rocky was like, he just came up. He goes, "Man, I just want to be called anything. It doesn't matter to me." And he goes, "We can be the Havana Pitbulls or something." And then I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of like the British Bulldogs, just us, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, you like it?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally. Like, let's do that." Like, so that was kind of the idea behind that, was like basically biting the British Bulldogs, but for what we are. And so it stuck, for a while. So. And I thought it was cool, and everyone liked it that we told. They were like, "Yeah, it's awesome," So, and no one was really doing anything else, close to that at that time. So worked out for us.
Right now, you'd mentioned struggling trying to get the I guess you would say like the emotion like of the character part with the fans and that type of thing. So what did it mean to you when you won the Ring of Honor tag belts with Rocky, and then you had you won the six man or whatever, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, with Rocky and Homicide in Ring of Honor.
Yeah. Well, the belts in Ring of Honor were, like, for us at the time, we were winning belts everywhere we went. So it was, I mean, honestly, like, going to Ring of Honor and winning the belts there was just another day, like, for us. Like, I think Chris Daniels thought it was a bigger deal than what it was, than we thought it was, you know. So I remember we beat Punk and Cabana, which was a huge thing, in Philadelphia, I think it was, and we walked to the back and we had the belts and we, like, threw them on our bags, and like we sat down, we were just talking, and then Chris walked by and he was like, "You guys just won the belts?" And we were like, "Yeah." But for us, it was like we won belts everywhere we went, and then it became like this, kind of like an ongoing joke, like, your belts don't mean anything unless they're on the Cubans. Like,
it's like another day at the office.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it felt like. Like, to me, people say that all the time, like, "Oh man, you know, like you guys won the world tag titles," and we were like, "Yeah, like, we did it here, we did it." Like, for us, it was literally just another shot. Like, it was just another, day in the office. So that was, I mean, that was how I felt, at least. I was just like, yeah, whatever. It meant more to me that I was in there with my friends, with Punk and Cabana, and that was more meaningful than the belts. But it was cool. What made it even cooler was Joe was the champion at the time, and we were all traveling together because we all flew out of LAX together. So it was us. We had the tag belts. Joe was the world champion, and then American Dragon, Brian was with us. Like, he lived in Santa Monica with us too. So we all, like, it was just cool to be able to, like, travel across the country with your best friends, and kind of like felt like you were running the wrestling world at the time, I guess, because, like, we were all the champions or top guys,
Yeah, and that's awesome.
We get into town and everyone knew to pick up the California guys, and so it was fun. It was a fun couple of years, like, that type of feeling. But and then the trios thing, the trios tournament was cool. I had a ridiculously hard time getting there. I had, like, some layovers, and I had flight delays and stuff. I slept in the Las Vegas airport, like, the night before, so there was no flights going into Philadelphia, and then I got to the building, like, maybe not even an hour before the show started.
Oh, wow.
Ran in. Yeah, I didn't know what was going on, and then we were wrestling all 3 matches, and I was, like, on zero sleep. So I just remember being on, like, total, like, cruise control. And then the ring broke or something.
Holy
and then
crap.
I remember I remember I think it was Generico and Brian. They were a team, and I think we beat them in the second round. And I remember Brian's whole goal was to break the ring. He was like, "Just keep shooting me into that buckle."
Oh,
and
no.
Gabe was like, yeah, Gabe, the booker, he was like, "Whatever you do, stay away from this buckle." And then Brian just kept saying, "Shoot me into that buckle." Like, let's break this ring. So we all had fun. It was fun in that sense, like, kind of goofing off and stuff like that. And then, I mean, again, like, with Ring of Honor, it was just fun being around my friends. That was more than anything. I don't know. I guess at the time I just thought, I always look at, because I've never, nor do I look at one event being more important than the other. Some are more higher profiled and so forth, but I take every match as serious as the next or the last one. And so for me, once I get to the building, the garnish or whatever that's around me is is kind of irrelevant. Like what I'm focused on is what I have to do in the ring, and that's my focus. So every time I wrestle, it's kind of just as important as the last. So, I mean, I have moments where I think back like, wow, that was cool. But, it's usually like at the time, at least, I'm just looking at it like, yeah, it's just another show. Like someday I guess I'll look back and be like, yeah, I guess that was kind of cool. But, I don't know. I just don't feel like, like Ring of Honor and other places I wrestled at that time, they were all as equally important. It's just Ring of Honor was on the East Coast and I was on the West Coast. So
right. Now, later on, you had actually wrestled in WWC in Puerto Rico. Now, what I wanted to ask you is there like a big difference in, say, their fans in Puerto Rico as opposed to like fans in the States?
Yeah, the fans there are a little more rabid. Like wrestling fans here are starting to get that way, like really intense with the wrestling. But the Puerto Rican fans just really, like, much like in Mexico City, like real passionate about their favorites. So you definitely feel that different type of energy from them, and the style there is a little more it's still kind of old school style. Like that's what really gets over is the fighting. So when I went down there, I was they restarted the junior heavyweight division because I had come down, and they had like 4 or 5 guys that were pretty good but just needed to get to that next level, and I was a part of that. So I kind of helped change wrestling in Puerto Rico for a little bit, because when I got there, people kind of knew of me and of what I was capable of. But a lot of the guys, like the junior heavyweight guys, they were just kind of stuck in their old ways and just felt like, oh, let's just do the same thing. I'll do my 2 moves and then we'll go. And I just kind of changed everything. I was just like, no, like we can't just have that type of match. Like in my mind, I thought the junior heavyweights should be what the cruiserweights were in WCW, like the show-stealing match of the night.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's here to see Thunder Lightning, Ray Gonzalez, and Chicky Star, and that's great. But I want them to leave saying that the best match, the reason why I'm going to come back is to see more of the junior heavyweight style. And so I really took that on and put the whole like division on my back, because we only had like 5 or 6 guys. So I had to go out and I had to have a run with every guy, because I was there for a year. And, so I had won the belt twice, and, it was kind of like the measuring stick for those guys. Like, I would go to the schools during the week and train, and, all the guys would come down and train with me and ask all these questions, so, I mean, I worked really, really hard and was really proud of my work that I did there, because I literally was training Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'd go to the office Friday morning, shoot promos, do a house show Friday, Saturday, and TV on Sunday. So I was wrestling a lot, and I made that. I mean, I could have just did my matches and that was it. But I wanted to train. I wanted to learn new stuff. I wanted to stay sharp, and I wanted to stay in the ring as much as I could. So I didn't go down there and, just like chum it up and on the beach. Like, yeah. I mean, I was there on the beach, but I mean, like, that was during the day. Like my focus was like, hey, I got to get to the ring tonight. Like I got to find a ride. I got to get to this, this training, and then I would be there all night till like 1, 2 in the mornings, so it was fun. It was like the time of my life. But, yeah, I take a lot of pride in that work and that run, because when I first started, I came in January 2nd, I think it was, or 3rd, for like the big show to start the year. And Steve Carino booked me out there. And I remember when we had went to Japan in October, the year before, in October 2008. And I went for 0-1 for a couple of weeks with Steve. And he asked me, and he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "Would you come to Puerto Rico if there was an opportunity?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love to. It's one of the places I've been wanting to go." So he said, "All right, well, let me talk to Carlos and see what I can do." And I said, "Okay." So he was going, like, we did 2 weeks in Japan, and then he went home for like a week, and then he went to Puerto Rico for a couple months. So, and then I get an email like around Thanksgiving time, and it was like, "Hey, Carlos wants you to come down starting January 3rd or 2nd." And I said, "Oh, okay, awesome." And he goes, "Can you do 6 weeks?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, no problem." So I remember I had an awesome tour in 01. I did their junior heavyweight tournament, and had some awesome matches. I really came out of my shell and just had, like, my character was on point and everything. I was basically just biting Eddie Guerrero. Everything he ever did, I tried to do like him, and with his style and flair. And I thought his heel work in like '97 was probably like the best ever. So I just kind of took that character and was kind of doing that, and I was on fire. So when I got to Puerto Rico, I went into the building, and Carlos was sitting in like his office, and he kind of looked at me and smiled, and he waved, and I was like, "Oh my God," like, I kind of marked out. I was like, "Shit, that's, Carlos Colon." So I went into the big locker room, and I put my stuff down, and then I remember I went over and introduced myself, and I was like, "Oh, I'm starting today. I'm Ricky Reyes," whatever, and introduced myself to everybody, and then I left the room. So to catering or whatever, and then Carino comes up to me and he goes, "We got to talk." So I was like, "All right." So we go into the locker room, and he's like, "So I got some bad news." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Carlos thought you were taller, like bigger." And I was like, what does that mean?" And he was like, "Well, he's kind of mad at me. He's mad at me, but, because I didn't tell him that you weren't, 6'1". He assumed with the pictures and the footage that I gave him that you were much bigger." He goes, and the first thing he told me was, he told me, Carlos told Steve, "Small guys can't draw."
Oh, wow.
And he goes, how's he going to make me any money? And then he goes, "So I don't really know what to tell you." And I said, "Is he telling me to leave?" And he was like, "No, he's not telling you to leave." Like, he goes, "Unless he tells you that." And I was like, "Well, what is this about?" Like, I said, "What am I supposed to do?" And he's like, "Honestly," he goes, "go out there and just be Ricky Reyes. Just do what you do." And I said, "And that'll fix everything?" And he goes, "If you show him you can work, he'll appreciate that." So that's why I took on, the responsibility of kind of like making the junior heavyweight division like my thing, So I really took it personally, because I felt like he was always watching me, and I always had a strike against me. So I went out there with like my intentions to kind of like shove it up his ass, and say, "Well, small guys can't draw. How come I'm having the biggest reactions every night?" So even when the guys were lazy and they didn't want to do it, I went out there and I beat the shit out of them in the ring. Like, I made them fight me in the ring, because I was like, well, I always took my matches personally, like, because it has my name on it.
Right.
So we're gonna do it right, because this is all I have. I don't have a contract. I don't have anything. So in my mind, my work was my contract. I needed to do something that no one else was doing, so they would bring me back, because they said they need that part of their of that. They needed that match on their show. They needed that credibility. They needed that wrestling. So, really long story short, it ended up being better than I ever could expect it, because I went out, I wrestled the first night. Carlos loved it. Came to the locker room, paid me whatever, and we had like a 5-minute talk. And he was like, "Oh," and I said, "Look, I know that you thought I was bigger and this and that." And he was like, "Well, you're awesome in the ring, and I'm happy you're here." And I was kind of like, whew. I was like, "Okay, cool." But then I felt like, hey, well, this is just the start. I just had one good match, and I'm going to be here for 6 weeks. Well, my 6 weeks went by, and I was still booked every week. They didn't tell me to go home or give me a ticket to go home, so I just stayed there. And then 3 months later, Carino comes out of a booking meeting, and I remember I was with my buddy Angel. We went to Denny's, and he came in and he plops his folder on the table, and he goes, "So got some big news. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, I guess you're not going home anytime soon. So I was all happy, and I was like, all right. You know, I was like, well, what makes you think that? And he said, well, Ray Gonzalez brought up, you know, that we should bring back the junior heavyweight title. And the first thing Carlos said was like, well, why bring back the belt? All we have is Reyes. Like, he's the only one that's good enough. And then Carino was like, well, what if we made Reyes like, you know, the guy, and he had matches with everybody and kind of elevates everybody together, you know? And then he goes, well, that's fine. If he wants to do that, he goes, but these guys are lazy, you know, they just want to do these stupid flips, you know? And he goes, people don't buy it as real fighting because it looks like bullshit, you know? And
yeah,
and that's always been I agree 100%. You know, I said, I always thought if you made it look like you're using it as a weapon, then it makes sense. But there has to be that intensity that you're actually fighting to build to that, you know? And so Steve said, yeah, you know, you're winning the junior heavyweight belt at the big show, you know, at the end of the month. And I said, oh, all right. Like, now the next problem that came immediately after that was I'm deathly afraid of heights. Like, I don't go to the top rope.
I'm the same way, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, I don't dive. I don't go to the top. Doing a superplex, I'm scared, and I tell the guy, just sit there until we go. Don't stand up with me. I'll freak out. So I'm winning the junior heavyweight belt in an Ultimate X match. Like, so they did the whole rig with the X, you know, hanging hanging above the ring and the ladders and everything. And I told Steve, I said, I can't. I said, I can guarantee if I even got up to the wire, I would freeze because I'd be afraid I'm going to fall. And then he goes, well, that's the match and you're up. And I said, all right, I have this great idea then. I said, why don't we they had a tag team at the time. I said, why don't we have the one tag team guy, Tua, go up there, and he's going across to win the belt. The referee can be looking up at Tua. I'll grab his tag partner, shit can his tag partner into the ref. The ref goes down. Tua grabs the belt. He's holding the belt. Everyone thinks he won. Ref hasn't rung the bell. Turns around. I kick him in the head, give him a brain buster. I pick the belt up, wake the ref up. I'm the new champion. And Steve was like, that's a good idea, but we'll see if Carlos bites it. And sure enough, Carlos loved it. And he was like, yeah, it's perfect. And so there I was.
That's one way to get around it.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is the biggest misconception working down there? Because you know you hear all kinds of stories.
Well, I'm not sure if there really is one. Like, it's kind of just the way everyone describes it. I mean, you don't go there to get rich. You go there to learn how to work. And that's what I got from it. Like, I learned my character there. I developed my character there. I learned how to get over with the crowd without doing much. I learned how to work a territory and build to angles. So you don't go there for the money, because I mean, there was weeks where I didn't even get paid. I mean, there's technically hundreds of dollars they still owe me, you know, and I still stayed, you know, and I told Carlos, I said, I know you owe me like $800, but I'm not going anywhere, you know, and I was going to finish the year off, you know, because I felt like I had did a lot of work up until that point, and I wanted to see it off. And it's just a rough, you know, it's a rough, hard way of living there, you know. I mean, and then it's kind of easy. It's because it's laid back. I mean, the lifestyle there is very vacation-y, you know. So, but the work itself, like in the ring and stuff, like the guys will work hard if you make them work hard. If you're a hard worker, you know, you have no choice but to work hard to keep up with you, you know, or just get eaten up. So, I mean, as far as like when people ask me, should I go to Puerto Rico? I always say, yeah. Just don't expect, you know, it's not like wrestling for New Japan, you know. It's not like you're going to be like, you know, catered to and chauffeured around and looked at as a superstar. You know, like you'll be on TV, which will be cool. And, you know, if you haven't done that yet, that's a good way of learning, because then you learn how to do promos, and you do promos for different towns, for different, you know, events, you know. So you go promo day, you go in, here's your list of towns we're hitting, here's who you're working in those towns. So cut a promo, you know, and that's how you learn. But I mean, it's really just a one big learning experience, and it's just how much you want to learn and how much you want to gain from it. I knew when I was there that I was learning stuff like every week, every day, you know, I was learning something new. And that's why I stayed for so long. Because like at the end of like Summer Madness or whatever it was, Carlos was like, "Oh, did you want to go home?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Well, I don't really have anything for you." And I said, "Well, I'll meet you in the office Monday. I have tons of ideas." You know, so he was like, "Fair enough." You know, and I went into the office, and he's like, "I don't want to get rid of you because you haven't gone to jail, you're not doing drugs." You know, he goes, "You show up to work, you work hard." He goes, "So let's try to figure something out." And I said, "All right." So I gave him some ideas, and he's like, "All right." He goes, "I got some ideas now. This is what we'll go with till the end of the year." And I said, "At the end of the year, I can go home." I said, I'm learning too much. I'm having a great time. You know, I mean, I was poor as dirt, but for me, just getting in the ring was, you know what I mean? And being able to do that 3-4 days a week, every week, like, you know, without skipping a beat, really, you know, on TV, I was learning all these things I needed to learn, you know. So, and we accomplished a lot. Like if you ever ask Steve Carino, like, he'll tell you that 2009 was one of WWC's best profitable years. Like, you know, that was the first time anniversary was over 10,000 people sold out, you know, Coliseum. So, and they hadn't done that in over, I think, like 15 years.
Wow.
You know, like they had weekends where they had like 5 and 6 and an 8, like in different towns, but they never drew over 10,000 people, you know. And I mean, we had Phoenix Trinidad was a referee, special guest referee, you know, in the main event. I mean, it was huge, you know. So it was a great year for them, and learning wise, I mean, it was, you know. So
right now, is there any guy in particular that you like model your in-ring product like is it Flair, or because I know you'd mentioned Flair and Eddie Guerrero?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly took and bit a lot of Eddie's stuff. I also like Benoit and Dynamite, like those style, like heels. So I just kind of like take a little bit of everything. I mean, wrestling evolves and the styles change, you know, and I try to keep up with that type of stuff, because I want to be like anybody that's like stuck in like, well, you know, back in the late 90s, here's how we used to do it. You know, I don't want to be that guy, but like I like if I see something, I'm very technical about it, so I like to learn the techniques of the moves, and that's what I enjoyed about my New Japan Dojo days, was like I got to learn how to kick correctly, how to throw a correct knee, an elbow strike. You know, I learned how to you know, do a good waist lock throw, gut wrench, you know, suplex, you know, correctly. And I learned all the technical stuff through those coaches. So when I see something new, like let's take Aleister Black, for example. Like his style is the Dutch kickboxing, is, you know, what his discipline is, and a lot of his spinning elbow techniques and knee strikes and stuff. Like I've done all that stuff. Like, you know, I've trained all that stuff, and I see how he mixes it in, and I see that, and I think, maybe I can do this spinning back elbow, or, you know, I'll do this block kick into spinning back elbow. So like I'm kind of always evolving myself as I see like influences from everybody, you know. Like I don't totally take everything he does, but I saw like him do like try an elbow attempt one time, and I thought, well, what if I hit mine, you know, or what if I did this, you know. So like I like that, because I have a ton of different like types of weapons I can use, I guess. Like, and it's just like what we used to do in the dojo was take something we liked from training, like jiu-jitsu or judo or something, and put ourselves in a pro wrestling position or moment, you know, and see how we can use those techniques in that type of thing. Like, you know, like if someone goes for a hip toss, I know how to like counter it with an arm bar or a fireman's carry, or a side throw, like a judo type hip toss. Like there's all kinds of different things you can do from like if you stand there in a pro wrestling move and then try to think your way out of it. There's all these different things that if you know these different things, you can do those. So I just like my stuff and my technique. I always try to make different too. Like every match is different. There's a formula. If it's just a straight up match or like a title match type of thing, there's a formula I use, but which is just the generic WWE style formula because that's what everybody understands. They understand the masses understand a WWE formula match because that's what they're most accustomed to seeing. So they understand a good guy versus a bad guy, the heat, the comeback, and the go home. So I kind of use that formula, but depending on my opponent and what story we're telling will be the different techniques that I use, So
yeah, so you're always like evolving, always like changing up who you are.
Yeah, so it doesn't really like I can't really say, well, my inspirations go through wrestling have always been the wrestlers, like the Bret Harts, the Mr. Perfects, the Shawn Michaels, the Dynamite Kids, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero's, stuff like that. And then now being able to work with Chavo Guerrero, like he's my agent in Lucha Underground, when it comes to matches and stuff. And the most amazing things I've ever heard come from him when he says, yeah, Eddie used to do something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, and just watching his matches, like going back and watching his cruiserweight run in 2004, and all those guys he got to work, Gregory Helms, Tajiri, Ultimo Dragon, and I'm thinking, like, my God, like Jamie Noble, like those guys, like,
dude,
can you imagine, like, that's work?
Yeah, that was such an underappreciated run, I think.
Oh, totally. I think, and I told him this, I said, the only reason why that was not as appreciated as it should have been is because I think a lot of fans looked at that cruiserweight era, that 04 to 06 time, as like, oh, they're trying to relive what WCW did. You know what I mean? Because it was it was less than 5 years past, and I told him, and I said, I go back and watch, you versus, Rey Mysterio, or, Jamie Noble versus Tajiri, like how stupid is that match? You know what I mean? And they give them like 3 minutes, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh my
so
God,
frustrating.
It's crazy, and I'm like, why do you have Shannon Moore versus Ultimo Dragon? Like, come on,
Oh, dude, and I was huge into that, like, back in the day, because I'm, like, about an hour at most from the ECW arena, so I got to see, like, Rey Mysterio fight Psychosis when they first came over, to the States, and then all the other, like, Hoovy and all these other... That's why I watched Nitro. I would watch, like, the first hour, because you knew the first hour was usually going to be all the kick-ass, like, cruiserweight matches. And then after that, I usually switched over, because then, those... You usually didn't have any more after the first hour.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is like I just take certain things from people and continue to just constantly evolve. So like, I mean, a year ago my style was completely different from probably what it is now. You know what I mean? Or at least moveset wise, it's different, and every night is different. Because if not, you're just gonna end up feeling like you're going into work and just doing the same thing, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Now, Jim in our chat wants to know: have you actually wrestled in every state, all 50 states?
No. Unfortunately, no. This past year, since we've been off tapings, like, has given me an opportunity to, get out there more. So I've gone to like Texas a few times, and to the Midwest a little bit more, like Indiana and Chicago and Detroit and stuff like that, a little bit more than I had been. But no, I mean, I'm based out of the East Coast now, and so I'm hitting different states: Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, obviously, and Pennsylvania. So I'm hitting different different states all the time. Just haven't gotten to all of them.
Now, what I wanted to ask you is, how did your signing with Lucha Underground all come about?
So I was in contact with AAA since 2006. I had wrestled for CMLL in 2003, so they knew who I was, and I was kind of in contact with the office. Like, I would hit up the office every year, like maybe once or twice, just throughout the year, to see if they had any openings and stuff. And so they kept telling me that they were going to tour. What they had told me was, I felt like they just kept stringing me along because they didn't have anything in Mexico for me, because they just couldn't afford to bring another like outsider in at the time. And then they kept telling me, well, we're going to do a big tour across the U.S. and we would like to use you. So they kept telling me, like, you are one of our guys that we want to use when we have some spots available. So I was all about it, and so I kept in contact. Like I said, once or twice a year, I would shoot the office an email, and they would respond back, rather quickly, and and it was always a very cordial relationship I had with them. Well, in was it 2013? I think I had read about the El Rey Network starting, and I read some stuff that they had planned on doing a lucha style show, TV show. So I remember emailing AAA, and they said, yeah, there's something in the works. We'll let you know when it's going down. So I was like, all right, whatever. Sure enough, I remember I got a call from their office on a Friday night, and they had told me, like, oh, someone's going to be calling you Monday. You're on a very short list of names that we, push to have signed, like, immediately. And I said, oh, all right. And I was like, well, and they said, yeah, this is a done deal. It's all going down. So I looked it up, and it said that, that AAA had worked out a deal with El Rey Network, and I was pretty excited. And then sure enough, Monday, this guy, Mark, who was like one of the producers, he called me and said, hey, yeah, we'd like you to come in for like a casting call. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I live in Philadelphia, and I fly out of the Philadelphia area. And then he said, oh, we thought you lived in LA. And I said, no. I said, I used to. I said, but I don't. And then they said, oh, okay. And I said, is that a problem? And they said, no. They said, Tony will be in contact with you. And that it was kind of like a short conversation. And I was like, oh, is that bad? Or, and they're like,
yeah.
All right, well, we'll talk soon. And that was it. And I said, all right. So sure enough, this guy, Tony, calls me up, and he's like, hey, I'm from the El Rey Network, blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested in working for us? We have 40 episodes we have to shoot. And I said, yeah, sure. And they're like, hey, we're going to give you this amount of money. And I was like, all right, that's cool with me. And they said, are we good? And I said, yeah. So he goes, hold on, let me connect Mark with us. So he connected Mark back to us, and he's like, hey, I'm here with Reyes. We worked out a deal. Everything's good to go. And he was like, all right. He goes, please sign the contract, send it over. So Wednesday morning, signed it and shipped it off. And technically, I'm the first wrestler to sign with Lucha Underground.
Hey, so well, that's a cool little thing you can say.
Yeah, so like the office guys call me 001 because that's my
You're patient zero.
Yeah, so yeah, it was literally that quick. I remember that was Monday. Tuesday, I reached back out to WWE because they told me that if they ever did a cruiserweight show, I would be on it. So I remember calling them and saying, hey, I have this opportunity. Do you know when this cruiserweight show would ever happen, or this network? Is this really happening? And they kept saying, well, no one knows a timeline. Vince it's big hush hush with Vince right now and stuff like that. So I was like, all right. So I remember I called a buddy of mine, Kevin Quinn, who he's trained like CM Punk, Cole Cabana, and he helped train me in UPW. But
right.
I remember calling him, and I was like, what should I do? I said, WWE, they look like they're going to start this network, but they just don't know when. And he was like, look, man, he's like, these guys want you now. It might not be there in another year, maybe, who knows? So he's like, you got to go with what you got. And I said, all right. So I was like, yeah, that's true. And I just kind of, it was still my own decision, but I guess I really needed, or felt better knowing like somebody else would look at it in that way, I guess, you know.
Yeah, you kind of needed like that little nudge.
Yeah. So I signed with them, no problem. And I mean, at that point, I mean, I was on the indies, you know, doing a lot. I was wrestling a lot. So I was all cylinders were firing, and I was feeling good. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, well, I said, you know, I really wanted to go WWE, obviously, but I said maybe this will be something big. And you know, and I looked at it like, you know, good for Lucha Underground, because they just got, you know, they got me. Like, that's how I looked at it, because I could wrestle luchadors, I could wrestle Japanese guys, you know. I said I could wrestle any style. So I felt like really confident that I would do not just good but great, because I could wrestle any style wrestler but make it all make sense in my formula.
Right.
And ultimately that was key for me, because when I do go to Lucha Underground and I do have these matches, guys like Chavo and you know, they're telling me like, look, these guys do great stuff. It's just got to make sense, because it's still an American audience that we're putting the show on for. You know, like the Mexican guys have their own Mexican style, which is kind of like a you know, like a show off style.
Yeah.
Like you do one thing, show off and hooray. I do one thing, show off and hooray. But that only works in Mexico. You know, so
yeah, you got to kind of do what works for whoever you're trying to attract.
Right. So like, I'm kind of that bridge where I can wrestle the lucha style, no problem. I just know how to make everything meaningful and make more sense. So not that everybody does it on our show, and we have some of those car wreck type matches, but sometimes, like Billy Gunn told me a while back, sometimes that's good, because, you know, it's just, that's what the cruiserweights are on Raw. And that's how Billy Gunn describes them. He's like, it's a car wreck. You know, it's like, hey, this is cool for 5 minutes. Now, what's Randy Orton doing? You know what I mean? Like, and a TV show needs a little bit of that.
It's like a variety show, I guess you would call it.
Yeah. So like in an hour, we try to get a little bit of everything: some drama, some theatrics, some supernatural powers, some of the hot chicks licking other dudes, and you know, and then couple of badasses kicking each other in the face, you know, and then, so I mean, I think it's great. You know, it's a perfect balance. I think we give the fans a little bit of everything, and they know it's just a TV show, and at the end of the day, they kind of get their whole fix within an hour. You know, they don't have to sit through 3 hours of it or 5 hours in 2 days. You know, it's like it's almost too much sometimes.
I can imagine. Now, Jim in our chat wants to know, how would you compare the atmosphere wrestling in the temple to wrestling elsewhere?
There's nothing like it. It's crazy, because the building that the temple is in is a huge warehouse, but the arena part is in this back corner of it, and you would think that the fans, like, the sound would drown out, but they're so loud, and it's so, like, the way it's set up, it's almost like a cockfight arena setup, you know, where it's kind of like almost like a circle-ish type, and the fans go upwards. So everyone's got a great seat. Everyone can clearly see the ring. There's probably, I think, 500 is the max that we can fit in there. And the energy level is just insane. Like, there's no real way to describe it. And to compare it to something else isn't fair, because, you know, I can't compare it to a different arena, because it's different. But the fans there are nuts, because I remember when we shot Ultima Lucha 1, and the crowd was insane. Then we took like a 6 or 9 month break, and then we came back for season 2, and I was the first match back for season 2. We did a dark just to get the crowd up, and I was in there, and I paired up with Ricky Marvin. And I told him, I said, look, and I even told everyone it was a 6-man. I said, look, guys, I said, this crowd is going to be insane. I said, just hit some clean, get your signature stuff, get it clean, and everyone get a moment in there, because we don't need to do too much, because, you know, we got to, you know, this is perfect TV type atmosphere. You know, we couldn't do like a 6-man and steal the show, you know, and then every other match after that come flat.
Well, yeah,
so
and
I was just,
like I say, sometimes less is more.
yeah, well, at that point, they're just so hot for it. They don't care what they see.
Right.
So sure enough, I went in with Ricky Marvin, and I think I tackled him, and the whole place just erupted, and he's on the floor, and I looked at him, and I said, see, I told you. And then he did something where we did a quick high spot. He ducked my line. He hit like that Tajiri handspring back elbow. And I told him, I'm going to take that and go to the floor. And I said, you just go and fake the dive, do the moonsault, land on your feet. And I said, this place will lose it. And sure enough, I mean, like, it's like I wrote the fan reaction. Everything that happened, it was just insane. Like, he tagged out, I tagged out, and I gave him a little wink in the corner. I was like, see? And sure enough, everyone came in, just hit their spots, boom, 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 1, 2, 3. We were out in like 6 minutes. And it was just like, it just set the pace, you know. And I mean, for me, it was so much more rewarding, because it was like, you know, we were coming back for season 2. It's all the fans wanted. I was there from day one, and the reaction that you get from them, you felt like your hard work paid off, you know, because like we went through we had some rough matches, and people got hurt in season 1, and you get that reaction off a tackle, and you think, okay, like it was all worth it, because, you know, these fans came back and they just appreciate it, you know. So
no, I agree. Now, Rich in our chat wants to know, and we were just talking about this, how do they do and prepare the vignettes in Lucha Underground?
Well, that's really the production crew. Like, it takes forever to shoot those things. And like, when I say forever, it feels like days, you know. I mean, hours turn into like days, like with the feeling. And the thing is you sit there and you shoot it, and you go back, and like the director's sitting right there, and he's watching it, and he plays it back, and he rewatches it, and then he'll critique it, and we'll tweak it out and stuff. But then when it airs, it's like completely different. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's all the stuff that they do in editing and everything, and the lighting and everything. I mean, these guys are like magicians, you know.
Yeah, I love them.
We'll shoot something in the hallway, and I'm thinking, man, no one's gonna see my face, or, you know, no one's gonna see me do this, and, you know, and then they slow-mo and they zoom in. It's just, I mean, it's like magic, you know. I mean, witchcraft, you know. I can't even really describe like how awesome they are, you know. So, I mean, it amazes me, and I'm there, you know, every week, like looking at this stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, that'll look cool. And then I'm watching it, and I'm like, I watch it on TV, and I'm like, wow, that looks nothing like.
Yeah, it's like night and day.
You know, yeah, that looks nothing like what I was standing in doing, but it does take a long time, so it eats up some time. So when, like, during the week is when we shoot all that stuff, and then on Saturday, Sundays when we do the matches. But, you know, you'll be there from like Tuesday, next Monday, and you might only be shooting 2 scenes during the week, but they take so long because they shoot from so many angles. They change the lighting, they change wardrobe, and it's just like, it's really a whole production.
That's awesome. Now, is there anyone currently wrestling that you want to work that you have not yet been in the ring with?
I don't know. I mean, Kenny Omega. He would be the Okada. Yeah, I don't know. There's not too many. I mean, I've wrestled guys like AJ and Joe, and I would like to wrestle them again. But yeah, I mean, I'm always up for a good challenge. I mean, I take every match serious, and every opponent, like, try to make it mine and their best match. So, I mean, I guess I always find it flattering when people say they want to wrestle me, you know, and I feel like, okay, I feel like all my hard work's paid off somewhat, you know, to some degree. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're not out there to wrestle the very, very best wrestlers possible, you know, like you know, what are you doing this for? So
no, I absolutely agree.
I consider them to be number one and number two, I guess, in the world right now. I think. I mean, besides Neville and
I
AJ
absolutely
Styles.
agree. Like the tournament they had that Omega won for the their U.S. belt was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was just inspiring stuff. It helps, you know, for a person like me that's been wrestling for like 17, 18 years. Like, I still get excited when I see those type of matches, and motivates me. And you know, and then I think, okay, well, you know, I can still go out and make magic, you know, because these guys went and did it. So
yeah, well, and the other thing I thought is cool is because that was in the States, you could see that, so it kind of like, you know, opened eyes to different people of a different kind of style, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jim in our chat said he would like to see you work Sami Callihan.
Oh, Sammy, yeah. I did like a 6-way with him one time, and I don't think, we didn't do nothing in Lucha Underground this season, but yeah, that would definitely be one I would like to do for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool because I like Sammy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does the future hold for you, Ricky?
Well, I mean, I don't really look too far ahead because then I kind of lose track of what I'm actually doing. So, I mean, I just as long as my body holds up, you know, and that's a constant work in progress, you know, just staying fit and stuff in this type of business is tough. So, and that's kind of like a side passion of mine, just kind of like fitness altogether, you know, like my wife's a nutritionist and yoga instructor and personal trainer. So, you know, that helps with what I do and everything like that. So, I mean, you know, riding this wave. This feels like wrestling is hitting another boom, you know, and it's definitely getting hot. Like on the independents is almost like the place to be right now. You know, it's almost like I feel like WWE are starting to hire so many people that it's almost like, oh, he got hired too. Like,
yeah, I don't ever like deter anyone from saying they want to go there, but it's like they just have so many like talents now. It's like there's no possible way you can be showcased in a way that shows your talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just feel like it moves so quickly now. Like when that person debuts, in 2 weeks, it'll almost be old news because somebody else will.
Yeah, it's almost like you're irrelevant.
Thunder, so yeah, so it's like you can get lost in the shuffle, I guess, and then you know it's then is it really anything special if it's not like, I don't know. I feel like, and this is my opinion, like they take top indie guys, put them in NXT, and then they're just doing what they've been doing on the independents. They're just doing it there. For me, the dream matches would be the guys that they haven't touched. Like nothing was cooler than when AJ and Cena started that feud, or AJ and Roman Reigns did a feud, because then you're looking at the two worlds colliding, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And it's like, so, you know, you hear this guy got signed, and it's like, okay, but you're going to stick him in the locker room where 6 of the 10 guys are guys he's already feuded with in this company or in Independence or in the UK, or, you know. It's like,
most people have already seen it.
Yeah, I think that now they have to take it a step above and like, okay, well, if we're going to sign, let's say, Indie Darling number 2, then let's stick him in with Dolph Ziggler, you know, a guy who's never been on the Independence. Yeah. You know, like let's get some, I don't know, give us Dolph Ziggler versus Roderick Strong.
Yeah, I know what you mean, like something different as opposed to seeing,
yeah,
you know, the same two guys fight like 6 times or whatever.
Yeah, because the fans that follow that, right, they've already seen all the Roderick Strong matches that he's going to have, you know, here, or, you know, like the stuff that he's doing. Like, he's wrestled Tommy End, you know, and you know, I don't need to see Roderick Strong versus Aleister Black. I've already seen it, even though it would be a great match, you know.
Yeah.
Not that they're not giving us good matches, but I just feel like the WWE guys, I feel like they still keep them in their own corner, you know. And then,
no, I know exactly what you mean.
It's almost like they made a new corner for the independent guys, you know. It's like NXT, like, oh, and I get it for some degree, but like, I don't know. I mean, why, you know, I guess I would just match guys up a little bit better.
Yeah, no, like Jim just said, here's a great one, Steen and Generico.
Yeah. So.
And, you know, they had fantastic matches, you know, on Independence. And it's like, you know, and this is just my opinion, it's like, when you've wrestled that much, it's like, where else can you go? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just recycling a lot of their stuff because that's what they know, you know.
No, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's still exciting. I mean, it's a great time. Like I said, it's, you know.
Yeah, there's an indie boom. I would definitely say that.
Yeah, because I mean, I think now the great thing is guys like a Dolph Ziggler can do like a Cody Rhodes and say, you know, I'm just gonna go make my own waves, you know, and they can do it, you know, and it would be pretty cool, you know, to see that happen, you know.
Yeah, and I said it's a great time because now, and you'll understand because of our tape trading days, that you could, if you want to, you can basically with like Flow Slam and different other companies like that, you could basically see any kind of wrestling anywhere in the world online now.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And that's, like, the world is so small now when you think about it. I mean, if, you know, you want to see, you know, All Japan or New Japan stuff, it's the click of a button. So
yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, so it's a cool time because before, when you had to convince people to watch it, now a lot of people already are watching it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Now, if people want to contact you on social media, Ricky, how can they get a hold of you?
So I have Facebook, Ricky Reyes, and then my Twitter handle is at Ricky Reyes 01, and then Instagram's just Ricky Reyes, I guess. I don't know. And that's about all I have. So
I don't even do the Instagram. I just have Facebook and Twitter. I haven't even gotten that far yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm like the old school. I'm like, yeah, I'm not big on like all this like Tumblr and, you know, Snapchat and all this crap.
Yeah, I don't do that. Yeah.
But I wanted to once again thank you for taking the time to come on and talk about your career.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now we're gonna get out of here for today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time. Have a good day, everybody.